I mentioned this search continuing in Bass Strait for a husband and a wife, along with their pet dog. They've disappeared. They were on a light plane flight that was from Tasmania to a small town in New South Wales. Now, Tasmanian police have now identified the couple with the permission of their family as Gregory Vaughan, who's aged 72, and his partner, Kim Warner, aged 66. The couple failed to make required contact with authorities during the flight. Let's catch up with aviation expert Captain Byron Bailey. Good to see you again, Byron. Despite being new to the aircraft, this pilot did not activate the plane's emergency beacon, and search efforts are ongoing with no confirmation, no sightings. Bass Strait's a big bit of water. What do you think's probably happened here?
Well, I'm a bit confused. You mentioned that Melbourne had him on radar, but I would have thought a light aircraft like this probably wouldn't have had a transponder. So I don't know if Melbourne would have had him on radar. You're supposed to make a departure call from any airfield within 5 miles when you first depart. And this gentleman apparently was quite experienced. He would have known legally you can't go more than 50 miles from an airfield without a flight plan. So he would have had a flight plan to go across Bass Strait. He would have made a departure call within a couple of minutes of getting airborne, but he never made that call. I was flying down south today and I asked Melbourne Air Traffic Control, can you make radio contact with Melbourne on the ground in Devonport? And they said, yes, you can, which probably means Georgetown, where this aircraft took off from, would be able to make radio contact before they get airborne. But even so, they should call within a couple of minutes of getting airborne and make their departure call, and then they make en route position reports. I'm just sort of very sad about this, but why would you fly a single-engined aeroplane across Bass Strait in winter? It's something I wouldn't do. And there's a picture.
So you would not be
airplane.
Prepared to do that? You wouldn't do it?
Not in a single-engine aeroplane, no. But that's a nice-looking aeroplane. It looks like a beautiful home built. There's probably quite a high performance. But if he's only had the aeroplane 3 months, we don't know how often he's flown that particular aeroplane. So, yeah, there's an awful lot of questions. But if you say they possibly had a primary radar contact or even a secondary, if he did have a transponder, they would have a fairly good idea of where he last disappeared. So they've been searching all the way across Bass Strait, and I don't think he got very far at all. So very sad. And with the water temperature down there and the sea state, it's not looking very good at all.
So flight tracking and communication systems, they are mandatory for all private aircraft, aren't they, if they're flying over open water? They
are, but it also depends upon the sophistication of the aeroplane. I mean, instrument flying aircraft, equipped aircraft, they have all the mod cons like airliners do, where they have transponders and radar and all the stuff. But the very light aircraft, and this looks like a home built, they can have very minimum equipment, and they're not really designed for long cross countries. It's more a fun aeroplane. There's a lot we don't know, but I would say it's very sad. They didn't have a dinghy, and also the only thing they had was an EPIRB, personal locator beacon, which you have to switch on anyway. So who knows, could have been engine failure, although engine's very reliable these days, and gentleman was in his 70s. It's very difficult to actually give a serious opinion other than the fact that it's very sad.
Mm-hmm. Just before you go, I talked to you last after that Air India crash. Investigators still working to determine the cause. I think there's been a lot of speculation around what might have happened. Will we get a final idea from Air India about exactly what caused that crash?
Not for a long time. This report that they put out had a few details that were correct, like the takeoff speed and everything else. But to say that 3 seconds after liftoff, the fuel switches transition to off, they're mechanically locked in position. It's got a 3 pilot action to lift it up, move it over gate and to off. It had to have been turned off by pilots. And since the co-pilot's busy flying the airplane, two hands on the yoke, he wouldn't have 3 seconds after liftoff where you're so vitally busy, he wouldn't have looked down and gone, number one engine off, number two. It was the perfect time at 3 seconds where you wouldn't be able to throw it back on the runway without going off the end and crashing. Or, if you waited 15 seconds before you did it, you might get engine one spool up enough that he could have climbed away. So a lot of me and my colleagues, we think it's a deliberate pilot action. And he, at the end, we don't really know what they said because the report is just saying, one pilot said this, the other, but I think that's not the case. I think the co-pilot probably yelled at the captain after 8 seconds when he saw what was going on and the engines falling down. Why did you do that? That's my feeling. And the captain, to cover up the fact, said, I didn't do that, and turned the switches on. But that was too late. And why pilots, when they commit suicide, like MH370, if it's proved suicide, the family doesn't get the payout. When I was with Emirates, if I died as a 777 captain in a crash, my family got $1 million US straight off. But if I committed suicide, they would have got nothing. So there's a motive behind trying to hide the fact. And one other thing, can I mention the shambles that was air traffic control this morning in Sydney?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I was sort of trying to take off in a private aeroplane with the rich owner out of Bankstown, and we ended up with 8 aircraft in front of us and half a dozen behind us, and sitting on the ground at the holding point waiting for an hour. All the time, Sydney has got airliners coming in, holding for 90 minutes, then diverting to Brisbane or Melbourne. You imagine being a passenger coming all the way from Dubai in an A380, 15 hours, holding for an hour. Captain says, no, can't land, and off we go to Brisbane. Why have not Sydney got what Melbourne and Perth and all the major airports over world category 3 instrument landing system, which means you can land in fog? It requires 0 feet, 0 visibility for the aeroplane to land itself. We've all done it. It's very easy. But Sydney is such a backborder, and it causes a massive confusion and cost.
It's a very good
hassle.
point you make.
Yeah.
It's a very good point you make, Captain Bailey. Always good to talk to you. Thank you very much.